Andasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritamsha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Ramastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome back to the Bhakti Rasamrita discussion. Today is the last class. We are discussing Prema Bhakti, the fourth wave of the Eastern Division, Purva Vibhag, Chaturtha Lahari, and which is in the Nectar of Devotion Summary Study, the 19th chapter. So in the last class, if you remember, we first discussed the definition of Prema Bhakti. And we saw what are the Swarup Lakshan and the Tatastha Lakshan of Prema Bhakti. Then how this Prema Bhakti, how we can achieve Prema Bhakti. And we saw this chart. I'll just share the screen. Sorry. Ways to achieve Prema Bhakti from Bhava and from Lord's mercy. From Vaidhi Sadhana, Vaidhi Bhavutta, the Praman is from the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 40. And from Raganuga Sadhana, it is Raganuga Bhavutta, example Chandrakati. And then from the Lord's extraordinary mercy, the verse quoted is from the 11th canto again. And there it is mentioned many devotees, how they attained love for the Lord. And there is also mention of Bali Maharaj, the gopis. But again in this, there is two categories. This extraordinary mercy of the Lord, which Lord personally bestows, it can be Mahatmya, Jnanyukta, or Kevala, endowed with the Lord's knowledge and Lord's powers, and endowed with only knowledge of the Lord's sweetness, Prema. So this Prema leads to Golok in the 4 rasas. This is also Prema, but it will lead us to Vaikuntha, only in Shant or Dasiras. And you can say 2.5 rasas are there in Vaikuntha. There is Sakya, but it is also having Gaurav Sakya. There is awe and reverence in that sect. There is no much intimacy there. So this is where we were discussing. We saw this from Bhava, the quotations. We studied the verses, both from Vaidhi Sadhana and Raganuga Sadhana. And now we saw this also. Now we have to speak about Mahatma Gyan Yukta and Kevala. Rupa Goswami is going to discuss that. We have seen these verses from Bhava, and then this is from Vaidhi Bhava. And then we saw from Raganuga, the Chandrakanti example. And then Lord's Prasad, Lord's mercy. Then we saw this quotation from the 11th canto, 12th chapter. And then in this, there is two categories. This is where I think we had finished our discussion in the last class. There is Vaidhi Bhav, Lord's mercy, Mahatma Gyan, Prem, and this leads to Vaikuntha. There is Aganugiya Bhava plus Lord's mercy, Keval Prem, which leads to Golok. Now let us come to the Mahatma Gyan, Prem. Okay, so I'll come to the PPT. Proof for Mahatma Gyan Yukta Prem. Atha Adyo. Adyo means the first. That is the Mahatma Gyan. Yata Pancharatre. From the Pancharatra. Mahatmyam Gyana Yuktastu Sudrida Sarvato Dikha Sneho Bhaktir Iti Proktah Taya Shrashtya. Affection for the Lord more than anyone else. Sarvato Adhika Sneha. We have Sneha, affection, only for the Lord. Adhika, which is very firm, Sudrida, and includes knowledge of the Lord's powers. Mahatma Gyana Yukta. Mahatma Gyana Yukta, not Mahatma, Mahatma Gyana is called Bhakti. Bhaktir iti prokta. It is called as Bhakti. By that Bhakti, a person attains powers in the spiritual world as well as other rewards. Taya Shrashtyadina. Shrashti, there is different kinds of liberation. Among the five, Sarupya, Sayuj, first we'll take first Sayuj, Sarupya, Samipya, Shrashti, and Salok. So beginning with Shrashti, powers, attaining the powers same as the Lord. There is no other way to attain such things. So it's only by this Mahatma Gyan Yukta you can attain these kind of powers. Now, does this Mahatma Gyan Yukta Prem fit in the definition of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? Anyone would like to answer? Raise your hands. Does this Mahatma Gyan Yukta Prem fit in Rupa Goswami's definition? You have to raise your hand to answer. I think you have forgotten all the discussion till now, what we happened right from beginning. Does it fit? Anyone would like to answer? Yes or no first, at least. Come on, at least somebody should answer this. Otherwise, I'll have to ask. Mohan Rupsham Prabhuji.
No, Prabhuji, I got lost in between.
Okay, you got lost. You are lost in Vrindavan. Okay, Lata Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I think no.
You think no. Why do you think no?
Because the definition of Uttama Bhakti is Anya Vilashita Shukya.
Yes, excellent.
Which is free from Jnana and Karma. So,
no.
Without that, means without any material desire, even for liberation or without the Aishwarya Bhav.
Yes, yes. If you remember in our discussion of Sadhana Bhakti, we mentioned how Bhukti and Mukti Spruha, as long as it is there in the heart, you cannot experience the bliss of Bhakti. And there, gradations of Mukti Spruha we discussed. That there is Sukh Aishwarya Yukta and Premuttara. Sukh Aishwarya means I'll also be in Vaikuntha, have the powers of the Lord, like the powers of the Lord. So although among the 5 kinds of liberation, Sayuj is rejected by the devotees, the other 4 are, they are favorable if there is service for the Lord. But the pure devotees even don't accept those 4 kinds of liberations. And we quoted, Rupa Goswami himself quoted the Kapil Shiksha verses. Salok Sarip Samipya Diyamanam Nagrananti Vinamat Sevanam Jana. So there it is fitting Anya Vilashita Shunyam, if you remember. So that is why even for Kevala Bhakti, these going to Vaikuntha also, if you have this desire, then you cannot fit in the category of pure devotional service. It's very, very lofty pure devotional service definition. To come to that practice of pure devotional service, to understand pure devotional service only takes many, many years. And to practice it, to come to that platform is also, it's a beginning, in fact, Ananya Bhakti or Kevala Bhakti or Shuddha Bhakti. So that is what we need to understand. So it's a very, very lofty thing. So there are other rewards here. Let us see what Vishwanath Chakra Thakur says. 2 verses, this and the next one from Pancharatra, show how Prema with knowledge of the Lord's powers and without knowledge of the Lord's powers. So 2 verses, this and the next verse. This verse is about the Lord's powers and without the Lord's powers. It doesn't mean that the Lord doesn't have power in Braj, but it is so much covered by the sweetness that even if he manifests his powers, like lifting the Govardhan hill, the pure love of the Brajvasis, they will never consider him as God, although he might do all these kind of tasks. Mahatma Jnanam, knowledge of the Lord's powers, means awareness that he is God. So what exactly is Mahatma Jnanam is awareness that he is God. Devaki and Vasudeva are aware that Krishna and Balram are God, whereas Mother Yashoda and Nand Maharaj will never accept Krishna as God. So that is the difference in the Aishwarya Gyan and the Mahatma Gyan. This awareness with particular respect for the Lord restricts feelings of Sakya, Vatsalya and Madhurya. So there is a restriction, there is a contrition in the heart because there is awareness. Oh, he is master, I am servant. So there is no intimacy. Whereas in Madhurya, sweetness, especially in these 3 rasas, there is intimacy because there is no restriction of those feelings. Though there is also awareness of the Lord's powers in persons practicing Raganuga Bhakti, that awareness does not restrict their feelings of Sakya, Vatsalya and Madhurya. So that is the point already I made. So they have that awareness, but still, that doesn't restrict their feelings in the Raganuga sadhana. Now, just to give an example to fit this thing or understanding in our head is take the example, especially in Bengal, the milkmen carry milk in cans and they keep grass in the milk, put some straw of grasses in the milk, dry grass, so that the milk doesn't spoil while they're carrying it from one place to another place. So when you boil the milk, sometimes this straw grass comes up. So what happens is those who are having Mahatma Gyan is when the Lord exhibits powers, it's like the straw coming up when the milk is boiled. So once the Lord exhibits his powers, then the devotee who is having Mahatma Gyan, he understands, oh, he is Lord. Like Arjuna, when Krishna showed the Virata Rupa, oh, Krishna, I did not know you are the Supreme Lord. I sometimes chatted with you, sometimes, we slept together and we chatted and we joked together. Please forgive me. He's asking forgiveness because he has that awareness that he is Lord. So when Krishna showed his powers, he became aware. The Brajvasis, on the other hand, it's like that milk which is boiled, the straw comes up and then it goes down immediately. So Krishna shows his powers like lifting Govardhan, or Mother Yashoda is shown the entire Vishwarup Darshan in the mouth of Krishna. It No, Mother Yashoda becomes aware, but it is immediately because of the deep prema, what they have, it gets covered. So the straw comes up, but immediately it goes down. And there is no restriction of feelings. Otherwise, oh, he's God. How can he be my son? Then that pure affection of Vatsalya dealings will come down. That's why there is no awareness of Mahatma Gyan in the Vraj devotees. It's only awareness of Lord's sweetness. Okay, there is a footnote Vishwanath Chakatakur is giving. For both Vaidhi Bhaktas and Raghunaga Bhaktas, Sambandh Gyan, which includes knowledge of the difference between God and Jiva and their respective qualities, is a prerequisite for proper sadhana. So one should not have a Aishwarya Gyan, because it will restrict feelings. So I'll not understand the knowledge of the Lord. No, that will not happen. So entire Bhagavad Gita in the middle 6 chapters, Jnanam Teham Sa Vijnanam Idam Vakshami Ashishita 7.2, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur says that Krishna is going to give Aishwarya Gyan as well as Madhurya Gyan. So what is Aishwarya Gyan? How the Lord has powers by which he has this Bhairanga Shakti, by which he creates the universes. He also has the Tatastha Shakti, the Jiva Shakti, and how he is the controller of both these energies. So this is Aishwarya Gyan. The Madhurya Gyan is how he lovingly reciprocates with his devotees. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. So this is sweetness, how the Lord lovingly reciprocates with his devotees. So there is a combination of Aishwarya and Madhurya Gyan given in the middle 6 chapters of the Gita. And if you see the 10th chapter, the Vibhuti Yoga is what? It is exhibiting the powers of the Lord. And these powers are just only a spark which manifest in this in the jivas. Krishna manifests in these jivas like Indra or Varun or whatever it is. The full power is there with the Lord, but you can see these powers, and these powers are coming. What you see in them, it's coming from me, Krishna is saying. But in the 9th chapter, Krishna exhibits the glory of bhakti, the glory of pure devotional service. That is Madhurya, sweetness. So like that, the more we cultivate Aishwarya Gyan, and then the more we have appreciation for how Lord is so wonderful and so sweet, the Madhurya Gyan will increase. So the Tattva will lead to Rasa. The Tattva will lead to Rasa. So that's why Tattva Gyan is very, very, very important. The Sahajiyas, don't want to understand Tattva Gyan. They directly want to jump to the 10th canto where Krishna is dealing with the gopis. And then they make such a mess. And everything is spoiled. And the whole Gaudiya mission is spoiled because of that. Even the Vaishnavism got a bad name in the 18th, 19th century. And still the effects can be seen today also. In Raghunaga Bhakti, however, this knowledge does not restrict their feelings of intimacy with the Lord, and awareness of Krishna as God is not part of his emotional cultivation. Here, emotional means it is not referring to the mind or the heart, it refers to the soul's emotions. This knowledge of the Lord's greatness and complete affection for the Lord is called Bhakti. By that type of Bhakti, Taya, the person attains Shrashti and other blessings. I mentioned Shrashti means attaining the same powers as the Lord. Okay. Kevalo yata tatraiva. So tatraiva means same, Pancharatra. Mano gatir avichanna haro prema paripluta abhi sandhi vinirmukta bhaktir vishnu vashankari. That Bhakti inundated with Prema. Prema paripluta bhakti. Prema pariput means completely surrounded. Pari means all round. And it is full. Pluta means inundated. Prema. That bhakti which is all round and it is inundated with Prema, with continuous, spontaneous desires to please the Lord. Haro mano gatir anavichanna. Anavichanna means there's no break. Free from the desires of other results, even the desire to see his powers. Abhi sandhi vinirmukta. So this is the exclusive qualification of Kevala Bhaktas. This Kevala Bhakti or Nirguna Bhakti or Shuddha Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti or Akinchana Bhakti, these all mean the same terms. Brings even Vishnu under control. Vishnu Vashankari. Prema Paripluta, perhaps this is the equivalent of Prema Vishta. Sorry, Parama Vishtata, complete absorbed in the object of love, which is the definition of Raga. So this you can see, this is the definition of Ragatmika Bhakti in one sense. And they have deep raga and spontaneous attraction to the Lord, where there is a desire to only please the Lord, nothing else. So this is Kevala Bhakti definition. Okay. Some points here from the purport. Actually, Kevala Prem, I will finish this and then we will take up questions. Actually, Keval Prem is Prem for Vraja Krishna, though the text says Vishnu Vashankari, which means literally bringing Vishnu under control. So Vishnu Vashankari, it is mentioned, but it is Prema towards Vraja Krishna, because only Ragatmika Bhakti is only found in the Vrajvasis. So it cannot be here Vishnu, it is Krishna, but it brings Vishnu under control, it is mentioned. So what is the deeper meaning of this? In this context, it must mean that Bhakti from Vraja Krishna is so attractive that even Vishnu becomes attracted. So that is the point here. Vishnu also becomes attracted to Krishna. An example is Mahavishnu calling Krishna and Arjuna to his abode to see him. So Krishna is so having these wonderful qualities, 64 qualities, Prema Madhurya, Leela Madhurya, Venu Madhurya, and Prema Madhurya, Leela Madhurya, Rupa Madhurya. Rupa Madhurya is beauty. So even Mahavishnu is attracted, and you have that whole pastime in the Krishna book, where how Vishnu stole the children, and then Arjuna and Krishna went to Mahavishnu's abode because Mahavishnu had a desire to see Krishna. So it what Vashankari. Vashankari means it attracts even Mahavishnu. In Arjuna's bhakti, however, there is a mixture of awareness of Krishna as God along with sweetness. So there is Aishwarya and Madhurya mixture. But in Vraj, there is pure Madhurya. Madhurya here, I don't mean Madhurya Bhav or Madhurya Rati. Madhurya means sweetness, whether it is Sakras, Vatsalya or Madhurya Ras. There is only sweetness. There is nobody in Vraj accepts Krishna as God. It's an irony. In the material world, all the materialists, none of them accept God exists or Krishna as God. And even in Vraj, they don't accept Krishna as God. But there is hell and heaven difference between the two. Vishnu's attraction to Kevala Prem would be to the Vishnu expansions as cowherd boys and calves serving Vraj Krishna for 1 year. So when in the Brahma Vimohan Leela, when the boys and the calves were stolen by Brahma's Maya, of course, that is a detailed pastime. I will not go into the subtleties of it. But just to mention here that Brahma could not steal Krishna's calves and cowherd boys because they are all his internal potency. And the external Maya potency cannot act on the internal potency. They are part of his paraphernalia, Antaranga Shakti. So actually, he captured Maya calves and cowherd boys. Just like when Ravan went to capture Sita, he did not actually capture Sita, he captured Maya Sita. So when these boys and calves were missing, actually they were hidden by Yogamaya so that Krishna can perform Leela. Krishna expanded into Vishnu expansions. So this Vishnu also assisted in Krishna's pastime because Vishnu was so much attracted to Krishna's pastimes. In this verse, the distinguishing factor in Kevala Prema is Manogatir Anavichanna, spontaneous service without the impediment of conceiving the Lord as God. Okay. So, there was one question. We will take up that first now. Yes, Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, I did not understand this part. How when someone is endowed with knowledge of Lord's power, it does not come into the Uttama Bhakti. Because what we discussed, that Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti also is a part of Uttama Bhakti, right? And in Vaidhi Bhakti, one will have that knowledge of...
that point is already covered. If you see, when one is practicing Raganuga Bhakti, both Vaidhi Bhaktas and Raganuga Bhaktas, they have to attain Samman again, which includes
Right.
knowledge of...
So, but how does it not come into Uttama Bhakti then, definition of Uttama Bhakti?
What doesn't come into Uttama Bhakti definition?
No, what you asked, the one who is endowed with the knowledge of Lord's power, is that a bhakti? That was your question, right?
I did not put that question.
What did you ask then, bro? You asked a question, right? Who is
When
known
did I ask
about
the question? Before beginning the discussion. Oh, you are speaking about this. I know this confusion is always there. You are speaking about this, right? Yes or no? Hare Krishna. Okay, first let me unmute you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You are speaking about this, right?
Yeah, Mahatma Jnana you were asking, right? That whether that comes into Uttama Bhakti.
Yeah, this doesn't come into Uttama Bhakti.
Yeah, so that's what Prabhu, since it's a part of Vaidhi Bhakti, how it does not come into
this is
Uttama
not
Bhakti?
part of this. See, this Vaidhi Bhakti is according to rules and regulations. And this Vaidhi Bhakti leads to Vaidhi Bhav and Vaidhi Prem.
Right.
There is Vaidhi Prem. Vaidhi means rules and regulations. Even in Vaikuntha, the devotees follow rules and regulations in worshipping the Lord.
Right.
So this is 1 minute. Just hold on. One at a time. Okay. Now, in Vaidhi Bhakti or Vaidhi Bhakti, which has been defined by Rupa Goswami, it fits in Uttama Bhakti, Paribhasha Sutra. Why? Because that sadhana which is executed to attain bhava, there Anya Abhilashita Shunyam fits in. It fits in Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. Because the goal of sadhana bhakti is to produce bhava bhakti. But those who are practicing only Vaidhi Bhakti with Aishwarya Gyan of the Lord, they have a desire to attain Salokya or Samipya or Shashti. So that's why it doesn't fit in Uttama Bhakti definition. So these are, the other sampradayas who practice Vaidhi Bhakti. They only practice Vaidhi Bhakti and attain Vaidhi Bhav, Vaidhi Prem and go to Vaikuntha. But we practice Uttama Bhakti. Within Uttama Bhakti, we practice Sadhana Bhakti, and within Sadhana, it is Vaidhi Sadhana. From Vaidhi Sadhana, we go to Raganuga Sadhana. And from Raganuga Sadhana, we attain Bhava and then Kevala Prema or Shuddh Bhakti or Shuddh Prema, by which we can go to Golok Vrindavan. Is that clear now?
Yeah, I understood, Prabhu, but I am still not understanding how the one who practices Vaidhi sadhana and goes to Vaidhi bhava and prema, they are not in the Uttama Bhakti. Means you mean to say
they are not part of our parampara. Please understand this. They are not part of our parampara.
So that's what, Prabhu, I was asking you that day. If someone in our we practice Vaidhi Bhakti, but is not going to the sadhana Bhakti, not going to the Raganuga Bhakti. He continues to practice with the rules and regulations.
That we have already discussed when we discussed Raganuga sadhana. If somebody is practicing Vaidhi Bhakti and he is impelled to practice his Vaidhi Bhakti by the rules and regulations, and he doesn't develop that lobha, greed, spiritual greed, and doesn't take up to Ragana sadhana, still he is, inclined, his consciousness is inclined to follow the rules and regulations because he has not attained that greed, then he continues to practice Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. And if it doesn't come to the Ragana platform, either two things can happen. He's still attracted to worship of Rukmini and all, then he will end up attaining Dwarka as a queen. But if he has endeavored in this life and next life, he continues further with Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and with the purification of the heart, he might enter into Raganuga Sadhana and then attain Bhava and then Keval Prema. But is it clear now at least?
I understood what you're saying, but I am just
understood. Then how the but question comes then?
Is not able to get into means we see, right, so many devotees practicing Vaidhi Bhakti even in Sri Sampradaya, but I don't see them that they have that desire to get liberated, and that's why they want to go to means. How do we understand
our understanding, what to speak about Sri Sampradaya, our understanding of Shuddha Bhakti to understand only will take 10-15 years. Are we practicing Shuddha Bhakti first, you tell me?
That's what, Prabhu, I'm saying. Since we are also practicing Vaidhi Bhakti only.
No. See, I'll tell you, we have a misconception. Vaidhi Bhakti is also very, very lofty. It's very lofty. Yes. Very lofty. See, if you see the definition of Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam Anukulena Krishnanushilanam. I will come to this point, just hold on, because we'll have to go into the deep subtleties of the definition of Uttama Bhakti, which I have not dealt in our whole discussion in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But just to give a hint, in the end, I will take few verses to make you understand actually that this, process, what we are practicing right now, is not the highest process, Ananya Bhakti. I'll come to that point. Kindly hold on for that. Okay. And the end of the discussion of these slides. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions anyone has? Okay, where were you now? Okay. So now the next verse, Rupa Goswami clarifies. Mahima Jnana Yukta Swad Vidhi Margena Anusarinam Raganugashitanunam Tu Prayasha Kevalo Bhavet. Those who have practiced Vaidhi Bhakti and then get the great mercy of the Lord. Vidhi Margena Anusarinam. Attain Prema with knowledge of the Lord's powers. Mahima Jnana Yukta Swad. Those who have practiced Raganuga Bhakti and then get the great mercy of the Lord, Raganuga Ashritam Tu, usually attain Prema with knowledge of the Lord's sweetness. Prayasha Kevalo Bhavet. So now he is clarifying it. Generally, Prayasha, from Raganuga Sadhana, one will attain Kevala Prema. However, the practitioners of Raganuga who also practice some portion of Vaidhi Sadhana does not receive Kevala Prema. This is the meaning of the word generally. So if you are practicing Raganuga along with some Vaidhi, then you will not attain Kevala. You will not be able to give up the rules and regulations. That spontaneous devotion following the footsteps of the Ragatmika Bhaktas is not happening. Your Bhakti is not impelled by lobe, but it is impelled by the rules and regulations, or there is a mixture of both, then you cannot attain Kevala Prema. Because there is still, you are not able to give up, the Aishwarya worship of Krishna and Rukmini. So then you will attain that abode. That we have all discussed in the Raganuga Sadhana quite elaborately. So this is the meaning of Praya generally. Now Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. If a person practicing Raganuga Sadhana performs Archana, which includes meditation on Rukmini and others of Dwarka, which is part of Vaidhi Bhakti, then the Lord will not bestow Keval Prema. Only if you follow in the Raganuga Sadhana the Ragatmikas, who are Vrajvasis, then you will attain Keval Prema. Mercy will be bestowed to get Kevala Prema. Okay, now after this is almost the end of the discussion of Prema Bhakti. Now Rupa Goswami speaks about the stages leading to Prema Bhakti. Now hear this a little attentively. And this is a vast topic. And just to understand it, it will require 3-4 classes and a lot of presentations, which I'm not ready now actually to do. But I want that devotees should really understand what is the discussion happening, and deliberate upon it and understand where we are actually situated. So here the stages leading to Prema Bhakti have been discussed by Rupa Goswami in this beautiful verse, and everyone practically knows this verse. Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Tata Bhajana Kriya Tato Anartha Nivritya Swat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tata Tata Saktis Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Budyanchiti Sadhakanam Ayam Premna Pradurbhava Bhavet Krama. Now, here this translation of Rupa Goswami or Jiva Goswami and Jiva Goswami's commentary on it. And I will give a small presentation, and after that, if you have any questions, we will take a few questions. First, there is association of devotees. Ado. Ado means there is association of devotees there, by which one gets faith. Then he gets Shraddha. Then one associates with devotees. There is first association of devotees where you get faith. That means initially you associate with devotees and you develop faith by attending the classes. And when that faith is there, you associate with sadhus to learn the scriptures. And then practices bhakti, tata bhajan kriya. Then the anarthas are then destroyed. Tato anarthi nivritya syat. Study bhakti without confusion follows. Tato nishta. Desire for the Lord, ruchi appears. Ruchi tata. This is followed by spontaneous desire for the Lord. Asakti. Tata asakti. Then becomes bhava. Tato bhava. And then prema. Tata prema abhudyanchati. This is the progression. I am krama bhavet for manifesting prema. Premna pradur bhava. For those performing sadhana bhakti. Sadhakanam. Now, let's see what Jiva Goswami has to say. There are many steps in the progression of bhakti. The most common sequence is stated in 2 verses. So there are many steps. Now, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur, he mentions many steps, especially in this verse, in his commentary, Shushushu Shraddha Dhanaso, Vasudeva Kataruchi, Swanmat Sevaya Vipra, Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. So I will just take that because there are many steps it is mentioned, but sometimes we don't understand this, what it means. So yeah, this is from the first canto. Yes. So Shushushu Shraddha Dhanasyo Vasudeva Kataruchi Swanmat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevana. O Brahmanas, Sudha Goswami is saying to the sages of attraction for the topics concerning Krishna, Vasudeva Kataruchi, will arise by service to great devotees. Swanmat Sevaya, followed by faith. So when you serve the great souls, you will develop faith. And by surrender to the feet of a pure Guru, Punya Tirtha Niveshana, and by the desire to hear. Now here you can see the steps. Yes, it is here. Satam Kripa. It's basically a pure devotee. By his mercy, he feels, oh, this person should become a devotee. So that is Kripa. So because the pure devotee desired, or the devotee desired to bestow mercy on this innocent jiva, the Lord inspires him to go and serve this devotee. Do some menial service. Give some donation to, oh, he's a sadhu. Let me give some donation. So like that, you do service to the great devotee. And by serving these devotees, great devotees, one attains Shraddha. He comes to the stage of Shraddha. Now, this stage of Shraddha actually is very much misunderstood. And only if we study Jiva Goswami's works, we'll come to know. And this Shraddha is actually pure Shraddha. This actually Shraddha is what? Pure Shraddha. 100% Purna Shraddha. There one steps into Ananya Bhakti. Steps into Ananya Bhakti, practice of Ananya Bhakti. That is Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadyanavritam Anukulena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktirutanam. What does Krishnanu Shilanam means? Continuous remembrance of Krishna. Continuous 24 hours remembrance of Krishna. The sadhaka is endeavoring 24 hours to remember Krishna. That is pure Shraddha, pure faith. And then these stages, Guru Padashraya, Bhajaneshu, Spruha, and then the eagerness to perform bhajan, and the abhadras destroy. And then there is, oh, where are the, yes, sorry. Then there is, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu, Anarth Nivriti. Then there is Nishta, and then there is Ruchi, Asakti, and Bhava and Prema. Then there are these, darshan of the Lord and experiencing the sweetness of the Lord. These are some additional, after one attend Prema, Vishwanath Chakravarti is mentioning. Now the point what I'm trying to make, please try to understand. The most important point to understand is that we are doing some core activities of bhakti, that is hearing Krishna Katha, chanting the holy names, following the 4 regulative principles. But we don't have that pure Shraddha. That pure Shraddha means what? Sarva dharmani parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papyabhyo mokshashami mam sucha. Complete surrender to Krishna. But our consciousness is, who will make arrangement for my family? Who will, if I don't work, how will I eat? Or how will I maintain my body? But this Purna Shraddha means Krishna will take care. I will absorb my consciousness in only Krishna. That's it. Continuously I'll think about Krishna. That is Purna Shraddha. But now we have our nature, conditioned nature. So according to our nature, we are doing some work and we are doing something what is called as Sakshat Bhakti. Sakshat Bhakti means direct devotion. Sakshat Bhakti means what? Direct devotional activities like hearing and chanting, following the 4 regulative principles, or attending temple programs, attending kirtan, bhajan. But we have also our conditioned nature and we have our conditioned swabhav. So we are doing our work and in the factory, but we don't think that we are working for Krishna. We think we are working for our boss. And whatever work we are doing, we are offering that results, part of that results to Krishna. Yes, not full. If you earn full the money, say every month you earn 1 lakh and you go and completely give it to your spiritual master, that is full surrender. That's full surrender. That means you are working for your spiritual master or you're working completely for Krishna. During Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, the Grahasthas used to work. They used to give the salary not to their wives. They used to give it to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to decide, okay, for this month, this is the expense for taking care of your deities. That is the kind of Shraddha they had. Purna Shraddha, that is called. Pure faith. So we are doing something which is called as Mishra Bhakti. And especially it is Karma Mishra Bhakti. Most of the time it is Mishra Bhakti. Sakshat Bhakti is very less. Chanting, hearing. So that is why if somebody has he's taken up to Ananya Bhakti means he has Purna Shraddha. From there Ananya Bhakti begins. Please note this point. From there Ananya Bhakti begins with Purna Shraddha, where you completely surrender to the Lord. Purna Shraddha means Sharanagati. Faith is equivalent to Sharanagati. And Sharanagati means these 6 limbs. Anukulyasya Sankalpa, Pratikulyasya Varjanam, Rakshisheti Vishwaso, Gopruti. Krishna is my maintainer. Krishna is my taker. Krishna is taking care of me. Krishna will protect me. That Daini Bhav is there. Karpanya, and Atmanivedanam is there. Complete surrender of the self to Krishna. So are we at this stage? In the beginning also? So now we have some faith. We are associating with devotees. We have taken initiation. But this is all prior to attaining Purna Shraddha. Because if you have attained Purna Shraddha, you will give up all other work and just do bhajan. Nothing else. And the example the acharyas give is somebody has discovered a gold mine below his house. It's a huge gold mine and you start digging it. You have so much love for gold that you just keep on digging and you forget food, you forget family, you forget everything, you forget whether you're tired because you have so much greed. Yes? That is why somebody who has attained pure faith, Purna Shraddha, means he is continuously absorbed in bhajan and nothing else. He's not worried about anything else. And you should know what is our consciousness. If we are traveling from one place to another, so much arrangement we make for prasadam. We carry, we tell the other devotee to keep. But one who has Purna Shraddha, Krishna will arrange. Why I should worry about it? It's Krishna's business. Are we at that level of consciousness? So I will show you some verses from the Gita to substantiate this. This is just for us to know what is Uttama Bhakti we are practicing. We are not at the level of Uttama Bhakti practicing, nor even Vaidhi Bhakti, because our Shraddha is very komal. Our Shraddha is very komal. Otherwise, if we have Dridha Shraddha, then Shraddha Shabde Vishwas, Sudrudha Nishchay, Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Hoye. So I'll explain the philosophical points from the Gita just and give you one story, which I think I must have told you, just to give an hint and idea of what this Ananya Bhakti begins with Purna Shraddha. With Purna Shraddha. So let me take few verses from the Gita just to substantiate the point what I'm trying to make. So in the Gita, only few verses, the middle 6 chapters, deal with Bhakti. But many devotees have many misconceptions. The middle 6 chapters deal with Bhakti, but most of the verses deal with Mishra Bhakti. And only few verses, just 5-6 verses, deal with Shuddha Bhakti. Deal with Shuddha Bhakti. Now, first of all, this verse 8.7, if you see, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhacha mayi arpit mano buddhi mam evaishyasya samshaya. Tasmat, Krishna is saying, therefore, after speaking yam yam vapi shvaran bhavam, sarveshu kaleshu, at all times and all places, mam anusmara. Anusmara is what? Anukulena Krishnanu Shilanam. Continuous remembrance. Anu what? Go on remembering. Remember and then fight. Now when we are working in our home or in our factory or when we are cooking, whatever it is, are we continuously able to remember Krishna? Our consciousness gets absorbed in what is happening. But this is where one has Purna Shraddha and one is practicing Ananya Bhakti. And one has Mayi Arpit Mano Buddhi. The mind and intelligence are absorbed or surrendered to Krishna. Arpita means it is surrendered here. Yes, Prabhupada is saying surrenders. Krishna is promising them that you will come to me without any doubt. And Krishna only mentions this asamshaya without doubt for one who is completely practicing Ananya Bhakti. Now this is the first verse I'm showing reference. The second verse is 8.14. Ananya cheta satatam yoma smarati nityasha tasyaham sulabha partha nityayuktasya yogina. Ananya means na-anya, without deviation of mind. Our mind gets deviated while chanting 1,000 times. Yes, this is a fact. So Ananya Chetasa, the Chetana, the consciousness doesn't go anywhere except Krishna. Satatam, always. And one who remembers me, smarati nityasha, regularly. For him, for that person, I am easily attained. So are we at this platform of ananya cheta satatam, yoma smarati nityasha? And nitya yuktasya yogina is nitya, constantly or regularly engaged in this. So these are the two verses in the 8th chapter. If you come to the 9th chapter, it is 9.22. And you see 9.22, what Krishna is saying. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana pariupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemya vahamyaham. Ananya, having no other object, or na anya. Only object is Krishna. Chintayan, concentration on me. One who pariupasate. Pariupasate again here means full, all sides, from all round, he is only upasana doing of me. For them, only for these people, these two criteria, when fit for these two, those who do these two criteria, they are nitya abhiyuktanam. They are always linked or fixed. The consciousness, the yoga is linked with Krishna. It never breaks. There is no break of the yoga. Then Krishna says, I take care of their yoga and shema. That's why it is only Ananya Bhaktas who are at this platform where Krishna takes. Otherwise, we only do, for our consciousness, when there is fear, we try to protect ourselves. We don't have that level of consciousness. We think that Rakshise iti Vishwasu. We don't have that consciousness. Then the next place where Krishna speaks about it is in 11.54, I think. Bhaktya to ananyaya shakya aham eva vidurarjuna dhyatum drishtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. Bhaktya, how? Ananya. See here, Prabhupada, without being mixed with fruitive activities or speculative knowledge. He's speaking about anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmandya anavratam. Shakya, it is possible. Only by Ananya Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti it is possible. And are we practicing this? Is a point. We are engaged in karma and we do some karma and then we do some offering to Krishna. Karma arpanam it is called. Aham eva vidu. We can know me like this only, Arjuna. Yatum, you can know me, you can see me, and you can enter into my pastimes. So this is one more verse. The 12th chapter, Krishna makes it very emphatic. Yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matpara. All the activities you do, you renounce the results of the fruits. And matpara, you link it to me. Now we work because we have a desire to get the fruit in the form of that salary. But mai sanyasya. And how we can know that we have the desire for the salary? Because when the salary comes, it goes to our treasure, not to Krishna's treasure completely. Then again he is saying ananyeva yogena. Ananyevana. What Krishna is saying here? Ananyeva. Ananyeva means without division. The consciousness doesn't get divided into anything else. Mam dhyayanto. Dhyayanto pasate. Dhyayanto means absorption, deep meditation in me. And again Krishna promises here, for such people who do this, tesham aham samudrata mrityu samsara sagara bhavami na chirat partha maya aveshita chetasam. Their consciousness is fixed in me, minds are fixed in me completely, so I will take them back. And the most important verse is this verse, 12.8 again. Mayeva mana adasva. In his mind, I am there. Mayi buddhim niveshaya. In his intelligence, I am residing. Nivashyasi mameva. So this devotee's mind and intelligence are residing in me. I am also residing in the devotee. Ata urdam na samshaya. So there is no doubt that he will come back to me. So these verses are only speaking about Ananya Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti. So what we practice is most of the time mixed devotion, and we are doing sometimes core activities. That is Sakshat Bhakti it is called. But when we get that Purna Shraddha, where we do Sarva Dharman Parityaja and leave everything else, then that Purna Shraddha practice onwards is where Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Anarth Nivriti, Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava and Prema steps start. So that means what is happening up till now? When you are practicing, your sakshat or your core activities of hearing chanting or hearing Krishna Katha, the bhajan kriya is happening but very little, and the anarth nivriti is also very little. But one who has Purna Shraddha, who gives up everything, gives up all karma and just surrenders to the Lord completely, pure surrender, then his Ananya Bhakti begins and he quickly rises to the higher levels and attains the highest goal. So factually speaking, we are in one sense, because Ananya Bhakti means 24 hours. Is chanting Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantasya Dridavata Namasyante tu Mam Bhaktya Nitya Yukta Upasate. This is the verse 9.14 in the Gita. Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Always chanting about me. Yatantasya, full endeavor. So when we get that Purna Shraddha, we are fully endeavoring with great determination. We can't be determined to sit 2 hours and chant also. So what to speak of Satatam? Namasyante, offering obeisances, Ma Bhaktya, Nitya Yukta, perpetually engaged. Prabhupada here, Nitya is perpetually engaged. So, Ananya Bhakti or Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam or Anukulena Krishnanushīlanam, this level is very, very lofty. We are not at that level. Even as Vaidhi Sadhakas, we are not practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti fully because our Shraddha is very, very komal. We don't have that full faith. Otherwise, with Vaidhi, immediately, very quickly we'll advance and come to Raganaga platform. I hope this discussion was clear. It is a food for thought. So many years when you study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we will understand this subject, what I have just hinted here. Why I hinted here? Because it is important, because we might be thinking that we are practicing Shuddha Bhakti. But no. Be it brahmacharis or grahasthas. Even the brahmacharis who are full-time doing service in the temple, they have their natures. Somebody likes to do, a lot of activity, like book distribution. He has that nature. Somebody likes to preach. Somebody likes to do temple-related service. They need activity, actions. They are not doing directly constitutional activities. Mahatmanastu Mampartha Devim Prakriti Mashita Bhajanti Ananya Manasu. 24 hours chanting, Prabhupada says. 24 hours able to remember Krishna. So that is the point where Ananya Bhakti begins. And that will lead to all these steps, which which Rupa Goswami is saying. And before that, if you see from this whole discussion, we are in Ado, and we are trying to get that pure Shraddha. And when we get that pure Shraddha, then we will, in that Ado stage only, we have taken shelter of the spiritual master and following the 4 regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds. But that bhajan becomes intense when we get that pure Shraddha, like, you have discovered gold below your house. There is a gold mine. And then you become fixed in bhajan kriya, although bhajan kriya goes up and down because it is anishtita. But quickly, because that deep greed is there to attain the Lord, anarth nivriti will quickly happen. You attain steadiness, you attain taste, and then asakti and bhava, and then prema. Okay. So I will just take another few slides are there, and then take up the questions. We'll just finish this because now nothing much is left. It is difficult to understand a person in Prema Bhakti. Dhyanasyam nava prema yasyon milita chetasi antarvani bhir apyasya mudra shushtu sudargama. This ever fresh prema, nava prema, arises in the heart of a person who is very fortunate. Dhanyasyam chetasi unmiliti. That person's behavior, yasya mudra, is very difficult to comprehend. Shushya sudurgama, even for those knowledgeable of scriptures. Antarvanibi means the knower of scripture. Mudra means behavior. The behavior of one who is in Prema is not understood. Vaishnava Kriya Mudra Vigyana Bhujaye. Here the Vaishnava refers one who is on Bhava and Prema. So they are Vaishnavas, Kriya and Mudra you cannot understand at all. Next verse. Bhavonmato Hare Kinchin Navaveda Sukam Atmana Dukam Cheti Maheshani Pramadanam Apluta. So here is the reference how it is difficult to understand from the Narad Pancharatra. O goddess Parvati, that means Mahesh is speaking to Maheshani. Maheshani means the wife of Mahesh. The person who is mad with love for the Lord, Harer Bhava Unmata, being absorbed in the highest bliss, Paramananda Apluta, Apluta means absorbed or highest, does not know at all, na kinchit veda, his own happiness or distress. Atmana Sukam na dukam. So little distress comes to us, how much we become disturbed. But the biggest of biggest distress, like death also comes upon him, is not affected. This verse shows the difficulty of understanding a person with prema. Even he cannot understand what is happening, what to speak, how we will understand. Here is the meaning. Those learned in scriptures define the goals of life as the destruction of suffering and attainment of happiness. This is the goal of scriptures. They try to understand if the Prema Bhaktas have achieved these two goals of life by looking at their external appearance. But these Prema Bhaktas internally experience happiness and distress only for achieving and not achieving the Lord. So whenever the Lord gives darshan, they feel anand. When the Lord doesn't give darshan, they go into vira and externally think, why is he crying? What is the reason? This is the same mistake which when Madhvendra Puri was feeling separation from the Lord, Ramchandra Puri did. Oh, you should be Brahma Bhut Prasannatma. Why are you lamenting? He could not understand the internal feelings of Madhvendra Puri. So, Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, sometimes he is in bliss because the Lord is giving him darshan, and when the Lord goes away, he goes into a different state of lamentation, viraha. So these things are happening to Prahlad Maharaj, and this is others cannot understand the Prema Bhakta's behavior. Thus is it said, I'll read the translation. Persons who have realized you do not regard attainment of impersonal liberation as a mercy. Aikantikam na prasadam viganyatya. What to speak of? Kim u attaining a material position like Indra, Anyad, which is subject to fear caused by the Lord raising his eyebrow. Arpita bhayam bhruva unnayaste. O Lord, Anga, those devotees surrender to your lotus feet. Ye tvad angri sharana are expert knowers of rasa. Kushala rasagya, derived from narrations about your fame. Bhavata kataya yashaha, which should be chanted kirtanya and which purify everyone like a tirtha. So this is one reference of a Prema Bhakti's behavior, Jiva Goswami gang. There is a second reference. Let us remain in hellish existence. Kamam bhava nirayeshu na syat, because of sinful reactions. Swa brijjener. If our minds can achieve prema at the lotus feet of the Lord, cheto yadi nute padayo rameti, like bees which are not injured by the thorns as they taste the honey. Avilat. If our words can remain glorious at the lotus feet like tulsi leaves, vachas cha nas tulsivad yadi te angri shobha, and if our ear holes can remain filled with hearing your qualities. Puriyeta te guna guner yadi karnarandra. So Prema Bhakti, one who's on Prema Bhakti, just like the bee goes to the flower and there are thorns. It is painful, but the bee is oblivious because he is tasting nectar. Similarly, the Prema Bhakta is taking so much endeavor for Krishna's pleasure that he is oblivious to all the dangers and sufferings in this world. And he is not affected also by it. Madhvendra Puri, when Gopal ordered him to get Chandan, because he had remained under the earth for many years and he was still feeling the heat, although he has done with Abhishek Jal from all the kundas for many, many days. So Madhavendra Puri did not care and he just left fearlessly. There are all Muslim kings, Muslim soldiers, there was always a death threat, but he was so much absorbed in Prema that he was completely oblivious to this. So this is the level of a Prema Bhakta. Now, this is the last verse. Premna eva vilasatvat virlayat sadakeshwapi atra snehadayo bheda vivichya nahi samsita. Sneha and other advanced stages. Snehadayo. I mentioned, if you remember, in Prema, there are higher stages. Sneha, Raga, Anuraga, Mana, then Mahabhava are the manifestations of Prema. Prema eva vilasatvat. But because they are rare, virlayet. So even those who have attained Siddhi, that means they have attained Prema Bhakti, they cannot experience these higher levels in Prema because the body cannot handle it. So only when they get a body where Krishna is performing his pastimes, they are sadhakas who are attained siddhas, like the Shrutichari gopis and the Dandakaran rishis. So there they can experience this higher level of premas, and from there they go back to the spiritual world. Because it is rare, even in those who have practiced bhakti, sadhikeshwapi, the distinctions will not be described here. Atra bheda nahi vivijya samsita. Now, one last verse he concludes. Srimad Prabhupadamboje Sarva Bhagavatamrite Vyaktit Kritasti Udapi Bhakti Siddhanta Madhuri. So you cannot find it in this book, at least, he says. But he says that Sanatana Goswami, my master, Srimad Prabhupada Amboje, has clearly described Vyati Kritasti, all the sweetness of the conclusions of bhakti, Sarva Bhakti Siddhanta Madhuri in Brahad Bhagavatamrit. Bhagavatamrite, though it is very esoteric, Udapi. So if you want to know the higher all levels of Prema, through the Gop Kumar story and through the story of, how Narad Muni meets these different devotees, one in Kashi, and then from there South India king, and from there Indra to Brahmaji, from Brahmaji to Shiva to back to Prahlad, Hanuman, I think. Hanuman to Prahlad, then Prahlad to Pandavas to the Dwarkavasis ultimately to Gopis. So that whole description is there in the Brahad Bhagavatamrita, and then you can understand, but it is very subtle. That's what he's saying, very Gouda. You can understand these Prema levels, which Bhagavatamrita has described. I think this is practically the last verse. Gopala Rupa Shubham Dadyat Api Raghunatha Bhava Vistarani Tas Tushyato Sanatanatma Atma Pratama Vibhage Sudhambu Nide. Sudhambu Nide. May the eternal Lord, Sanatanatma, in the beautiful form of a cowherd boy, Gopal Rupa Shobham Dadhyat, who distributes his mood of love to Rama and other forms, Raghunatha Bhava Vistarani. That means the Lord distributes this mood of Raj Bhakti to even them. Be pleased, Tushtatu, with this first part of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sudham Bodhe Nidhi Pratama Vibhage. There is another translation of this. May the person Sanatana Goswami. So Sanatana Atma can refer to the Lord is Sanatan, and also to Sanatana Goswami, who glorified Gopala Bhatta Goswami and Rupa Goswami. Gopala Rupa means Gopala and Rupa Goswami, and bestowed Krishna Prem to Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Bhava Vistarani, because Lord himself bestowed Krishna Prem to Raghunath Das Goswami. Be pleased, Tushyatu, with this first section of the ocean of nectar. Sudhambu Nidhe Pratama Vibhage. This verse has two meanings. The first meaning expresses the great mercy of Krishna. Taking another meaning, the author means the four contemporaries. The second name mentioned is Srila Rupa Goswami, the writer of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The first and the third mentioned, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, are Rupa's friends. The fourth, Sri Sanatan, is the elder brother and the author of this work. This is very interesting to note. The fourth, Sri Sanatan Goswami, is the elder brother of the author of this work. So the author is who? It is Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami's brother is Sanatan Goswami. Taking another meaning, the author mentions 4 contemporaries. The second name mentioned is Rupa Goswami, the writer of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The first and the third mentioned, Gopal and Raghunath, are Rupa's friends. The fourth, Sri Sanatan Goswami, is the elder brother of the author of this work. Bhava in the verse means Krishna Prem. So here Bhava means Krishna Prem. Bhava Vistarni. Here Bhava means not Bhava Bhakti but Prema Bhakti. So this all only the Acharyas tell and then we understand. So that ends our discussion for now. So any questions anyone has? Any questions, any clarifications? How many of you are convinced that we are practicing Ananya Bhakti with full Shraddha, 100% faith? Okay, how many are not convinced that we are not practicing this Ananya Bhakti, which is 100% Purna faith, Purna Shraddha? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, almost all hands are raised except Suryakanda Prabhu and Rasheshwari, Susevini Mataji and Sunita Mataji. Okay, maybe we have to learn Ananya Bhakti now. Of course, it's a vast topic. I don't want to further go, but any points which I discussed which were not satisfactory to your understanding, you can ask questions. Okay, so you can lower your hands.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, yes.
Prabhu, initially you gave us a hope that we are doing Uttama Bhakti. In the initial classes, you were saying, no, we are doing Uttama Bhakti. But
Yes.
but now after understanding that, no, it is only the Karma Mishra Bhakti.
Yes. Even this understanding also evolves for us as teachers, and we practice Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, but that Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti which we are practicing, it is not with full faith. It is not with full faith. Because you can understand by what? By whether we are able to fit even our Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti in the definition of Uttama Bhakti. By that you can understand. So even that is why, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's discussion, when he discusses Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama definitions, Shraddha Anusari, Krame Krame Te Hoibe Uttam. Krame Krame means step by step. The Shraddha is Kanishta, the Kada is common. And Krame Krame is gradually they'll come to what? The stage of Uttama. So a faith of a Uttam devotee is what? Shastra Yukta Nipuna. The conclusion of the Shastras he has thoroughly understood. Proud Shraddha. His Shraddha is what? Matured faith. So that's why that fine understanding is sometimes missing even for us. So definitely it requires a lot of journeying, a lot of discussion. And I had this understanding, but with a lot of discussion, it evolved. And there is emphatic or there is a lot of proof we can give. Right now, this verse in Ado Shraddha, it is mentioned, first there is association of devotees, there is faith. And that faith, when it is there, then only these higher stages are mentioned. Otherwise, we have taken up to practice. How many devotees just deliberate that, I have practicing devotion since 15 years, but that level what Shastras are speaking, or we see that, very advanced devotees, they have attained this lofty platform. And how many are there such like that? Even in ISKCON, very rare are there who are that on that platform of purity, where they are completely absorbed in bhajan. We can know that. many of the sannyasis, how they travel, what level of consciousness they are in, their practices. We can understand that. So something is, still that means we don't have that kind of Shraddha. What they have. So the discussions when we have, especially with respect to Sharnagati and Shraddha, Sharnagati, when we study, we come to know, oh, this is a lofty level of consciousness and I don't have this level of Sharnagati. Even if you remember, in the Angas of Sadhana Bhakti, Sakyam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam. Especially Dasyam and Atmanivedanam is not possible for Vaidhi sadhakas. It is mentioned there, yes? Yes, it is not possible. It's very rare for them, Atmanivedanam. It was mentioned there. If you remember in our discussion also, I said Atmanivedanam is very, very lofty. So like that, our understanding also evolves. And of course, only by studying and deeply studying the Shastras, then, we get this understanding. Prabhupada explains that in all his purports in the Gita and Bhagavatam, and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also. But we don't scrutinizingly study. Prabhupada explains in the 8.28, I'll just show you that. It's like a benchmark for us to. One who has little faith in Bhagavad Gita, little faith, Prabhupada is speaking here. He learns Bhagavad Gita from a devotee. Because in the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. No one can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee, not from a devotee. This is a sign of faith. And what kind of faith this is? Little faith, Komal Shraddha. When one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee and actually begins to study and understand the Bhagavad Gita. Now here Prabhupada is saying not hearing Bhagavad Gita. He actually begins to study and understand the Bhagavad Gita. This is like bhajan. This is real bhajan. Fully you're absorbed in bhajan, trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita. By advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service and this service dispels all misgivings about Krishna and God, and Krishna's activities, forms and pastimes, names and other features. So this is Anarth Nivritti. After these misgivings are perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in his study. This is Nishtha. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita. This is Ruchi. One attains the feeling of always Krishna consciousness. This is Bhava. Of course, Asakti is not mentioned here. Now Prabhupada says, very interesting. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. So which stage is this, Mohan Rup Sham Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Which stage is this? In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna.
It is the Prema stage.
And then Prabhupada says, this perfectional stage of life enables a devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual life.
The last.
So can we go at this stage, Anarth Nivritti stage, or Nishtha stage, or Prema stage, or Bhava stage? No. Only at the Prema stage you can go back to Godhead. So Prabhupada is making very clear. And here you see, having little faith and hearing from a devotee, but this is one sign of faith, he says. But then he's saying one searches for a devotee and gets fortunately a devotee and actually begins to study. And so there, this is Purna Shraddha. And in that association, Sadhu Sangha, he understands all Anarth Nivritti is happening, and then he is attaining Nishtha. Fixed in one study, he is relishing. So are we at that level where all our misgivings of the Gita, we are not able to understand the Gita after so many years, being 10, 15 years practicing Krishna consciousness. And now we are able to relish the Gita. Yes? So it's very clear in the purport. So we'll have to go deeply scrutinize and dig for that gold. Yes?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, it's inspiring to understand our reality, current situation.
Yes. Just to awaken to us to our reality. Of course, this is a vast subject and it will require few seminars, at least 8-10 classes to understand this. But at least we should understand it's mostly Mishra and some direct devotional activities, that is hearing and chanting, by which we are attaining faith. When that faith matures, then Sarva Dharman Parityajya. You give up everything else and just surrender completely to the Lord. Then Ananya Bhakti begins. Is it clear?
Very clear.
Okay. Any other questions anyone has? Okay, so we'll stop here then. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Rupa Goswami Pad